in hopes the project will begin construction in this winter. Environmental groups blasted a new development, saying it would ensure Biden's climate goals of slashing greenhouse gases in half by the end of the decade. In the homeowner tax rebate credit, meant for mid- to low-income homeowners, is aimed at offsetting high consumer prices on everything from gas to groceries. The checks were slated to be mailed in the fall, but New York started sending the checks early. During a speech, New York Governor Kathy Hochul said this budget provides much-needed tax relief for thousands of small businesses and millions of people in New York and reduces the tax burden for those who need it the most. According to the Department of Taxation and Finance's website, the state expects to mail out most checks by this month. Some may arrive later than others, however. The checks will go to 2.5 million eligible homeowners in 2022, and the check amount of each household depends on a number of factors, including location and income. The department had mailed about 1.8 million checks statewide so far, and is on track to mail more than 2 million more by the end of the month. Justin Henry, a spokesperson for the governor's office, told reporters, given rising costs and national inflation, the Department of Taxation and Finance has been working to deliver these benefits to eligible homeowners ASAP. The updated timeline coincides with a Democratic primary election in which Hochul is up against two challengers. Governor Hochul has repeatedly touted her focus on effective governance and addressing New York's day-to-day concerns. The arrival of tax credit in the midst of election cycle is not new, and Connecticut is the latest state to announce a child tax rebate as part of its 2023 fiscal year budget. The state included about $660 million in tax cuts. These cuts included $250 child tax credit care. The White House officials have announced that President Biden is going to be taking a huge step this month to address the cost of living for all Americans. Officials have agreed to provide $600 stimulus checks to hundreds of thousands of low-income households. And now we have some breaking news from the White House today. During an interview with the Bloomberg, White House Director of the National Economic Council, Brian Deese, stated that President Biden is doing everything he possibly can to combat high gas prices.
Thank you, Mr. President. I could have no more done that when I was 12 years old than fly. I used to be a stutterer. I was scared to death. I would stand up and talk like that. And I can't tell you how proud I am of you. And your brother is equally as impressive as you are. He's standing there. He's sitting there 2 seats over. Shannon and Joshua, by the way, happy birthday, man. He's going to be 13 years old, teenager in a couple days. I want you to know that lowering the cost of prescription drugs is one of the reasons why I'm here with Abigail, your congresswoman. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. Lowering the cost of health care overall as well. Lowering the cost of prescription drugs is important, and giving families like yours just a little bit more breathing room makes a gigantic difference. Before I get into that, I want to say it's good to be here at
But time needs to go over about the fourth stimulus check that I want you to know. Stay tuned and continue watching this video because you don't want to miss it. So as I said in my previous videos, big developments are being made in Congress on the fourth round of stimulus. An agreement has been reached on many parts of the bill, and lawmakers have confirmed that billions of dollars in stimulus relief money have been made available. Here it is, folks. Top Senate negotiators have said that they are close to striking a deal to approve $10 billion in additional relief funding. The Senate is now expected to vote on the legislation as soon as next week. The renewed effort to pass additional funding to address the crisis comes after negotiators were forced to strip $15.6 billion in stimulus aid from a government spending package earlier in March. That's over disagreements about how the bill will be paid for. And after days of bipartisan negotiations led by Senate Republican Chuck Schumer and Mitt Romney told reporters that lawmakers had reached an agreement in principle on all of the spending and all of the offsets. Romney said the $10 billion package would be entirely balanced by offsets. It's important to remember also that Romney have also said that the bill would also need to be scored by the Congressional Budget Office before Republicans get on board. President Biden has already urged Congress to act swiftly this week. At the White House, President Biden told lawmakers, "Congress, please act. You have to act immediately, and the consequences of inaction are severe. That will only grow in time." So it doesn't have to be that way, everybody. President Biden is urging Democrats and Republicans to get this done with urgency. And also, Schumer remains confident that the bill will be passed very soon. On the Senate floor, Schumer touted the bipartisan work that the Senate has taken in recent days to approve the additional funding. And during a floor speech, Schumer said the gap has been narrowed greatly, and we are intent on working with Republicans to cross the finish line because this is vital for our country, and we will like considerably more money than our Republican colleagues. Now, like I said, Republicans have insisted for months that any additional crisis relief funding would have to come out of the unused crisis relief money that Congress approved back in 2020 and 2021. The $10 billion top line number is significantly less than the more than $22 billion the Biden administration has initially requested. Now, many people are also said to receive part of the $87.3 million set aside for rental assistance.
With higher prices. Indeed, this severe lack of supply has relentlessly pushed up the cost of rent for families, taking bigger and bigger bites out of budgets, as you identified, that are now doubly strained by rising prices on everything else from gasoline to groceries. Rents are up nearly 6% more than they were just a year ago, and higher housing costs are one of the biggest overall drivers of inflation. So to tackle rising costs, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates at an aggressive pace. But we should be clear about the impact of the Fed's rate hikes on the housing market. Dr. Yoon, the Fed claims its rate hikes will bring down prices for families by taming inflation. So let me ask you, do you expect the Fed's interest rate hikes will meaningfully bring down rental costs for families?
The rental component in the consumer price index, it comprises about 30%, including something called homeowner equivalency rent. Given that there will be fewer buying activity and more renters, rents will be rising. So in fact, one can say at least the rental component with higher interest rate, it will be rising even faster.
So the Fed's actions on aggressive interest rate increases are likely to drive up the cost of rent. And as you say, that's about 30% of the inflation calculation. So it's not going to bring down rental costs. It's not going to bring down the cost of food or gas or other necessities that have spiked because of Putin's war in Ukraine. It's not going to fix supply chain kinks. It's not going to stop corporate price gouging. But by increasing borrowing costs, the Fed's rate hikes will do two things. First, make it more expensive to build new housing, which dampens investment in construction and makes the housing shortage even worse. And second, make it more expensive for families to take out a mortgage and buy a home. The cost of a mortgage, as you've pointed out, has already doubled since last year. So, Dr. Yoon, people renting and buying homes are worse off when the Fed jacks up rates, but are there any participants